You're all good. Have a good meeting. Okay, thank you. All right, welcome everyone. It is Wednesday, March 20th. It is 6:30 p.m. and this is the Scituate Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee meeting. Still being held via remote participation via Governor Healy's March 29th, 2023. She signed into law a supplemental budget bill, which extends temporary provisions pertaining to open meeting law. That extends through March 31st, 2025. Specifically, this further extension allows public bodies to continue holding meetings remotely without a quorum of the public body physically present at a meeting location and to provide adequate alternative access to remote meetings. This meeting will be recorded by Scituate Community Television and can be viewed live on Scituate Community Television Facebook Live. The recorded meeting will be available the following day on Comcast Channel 9 and YouTube Scituate Community Television. I will read our committee's commitment statement and then we will open the meeting. This is a safe, secure space for all people, especially people of color, and for all underrepresented people and communities. This is a space where people can bring up challenges and questions without fear. We will assume best intentions and will treat one another with politeness and respect at all times. This committee is dedicated to these standards. We want our members and others joining our meetings to feel welcomed and respected. And with that, I would like to call the meeting to order. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, Tom.
Thank you, Christina. Calling the roll, Ms. Dre.
Yes.
Ms. Swope.
Yes.
Ms. Gilberti.
Yes.
Ms. Sun.
Yes.
Ms. Risha.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay. First order of business. And I'm sorry, Kate, but I'm going to call you out. I think you were responsible for the January 22nd meeting minutes by alphabetical order. We don't have them. That's fine. Just putting it out there. So who's going to be next? Help me with the I think it's Christina, right?
So I'm happy to do it next time if you want, because I know I'm always driving, but I can plan to be somewhere where I can take notes.
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, I don't know if we've had the and this is more of a question for Seth that we can go offline and if he's not listening, but we do have the AI version, which gives you a huge head start.
Mm-hmm.
The Zoom IQ. So I don't know if we can find that. And then I think what most people have done, including me when I did it, is I just rewatched the recording.
That's what I was going to say.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm happy to do that.
So I would say, Kate, still just focus on the January ones, and then Christina, you're up for this one.
You got it.
All right. She's ready to roll. Great. Okay, cool. All right. So yeah, it's been a couple months since we met. No Jamil. So yeah, if we could kick it off with you, Maura, and then Bob, if you've got anything to add, just in terms of town stuff, that would be great.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Sorry, I think I missed the last meeting, so I was traveling, or I'm not sure if you didn't have a quorum and you didn't meet. So hopefully you didn't miss too much.
February we didn't. Yeah, February
okay.
We had to cancel, and then February short month. Everybody was crazy, so we just pushed it.
Okay, no worries. Just as an update, our last board meeting, I can sort of just give you sort of some highlights. So the advisory board and the select board met publicly for a public hearing to quote unquote kind of ratify the budget that we're submitting to town meeting. So as always, it's a balanced budget. I think the biggest call out is that, we are pressured right now with regards to revenue, cost increases, and also being able to enhance the service delivery that the board and, even, our town department heads want to deliver, we're just strapped. So there, just to give you kind of a little bit of a summary, there was about $1.9 million in new positions requested. And that, went across police, library, senior center, public grounds, engineering, town clerk, so a number of different areas. The only one that was funded was an assistant council on aging director for the senior center. So that's the only one that the board voted to approve to be able to stay within budget. So, it's important for us to provide good services to our constituents, but we as a board are also very sensitive to having to go out and do an operational override and increase taxes, especially in light of a lot of the debt exclusion overrides that we have before us, including the schools and the water treatment plant that we just did. So I would just say, keep an eye on the next year or so. Hopefully revenues return to a better level so we can add some more positions. But I think, we haven't had an operational override in Scituate for over 10 years, I think. I think the last one was I want to say it was 2008. It could have been 2010. So 13 years, long, long time. So, it's natural for towns to do that every 10 or so years to kind of get caught up with cost of living increases, because 2.5% doesn't allow you to address that, as well as salary, wages and things like that. So just to sort of give you that overview as to where we sit as a town. So that'll all be reviewed, obviously, at annual town meeting, which I'll call out is April 8th. So if you want to get that on your schedules, it's Monday, April 8th. And then this year, there's also going to be a separate special town meeting for the Cushing-Hatherley school vote, which will take place on Monday, April 29th. The reason why that is separate is because on the 26th, the MSBA is scheduled to give the final approval on the project, and we can't put it before the voters until after that final approval comes forth. So that is to happen on the 26th. So we want to do it quickly so we can also keep the same, put the ballot question on the general election, which is May 18th. So we anticipate having the ballot question there, as well as a number of elected positions that are open. So that really was the big news. If you didn't see, we have a new service dog that came into Scituate, whose name is Blue. So that's great to help our police force, help counsel, different folks throughout the town that they encounter that, need some wellness assistance and some comfort. And the dog was donated to us by a great breeder in Massachusetts who has been working with Plymouth County and a number of different towns to do that, recognizing the need that service dogs do allow. So it's great to take this route more from, a wellness aspect, and it won't be trained in bomb sniffing or anything like that. It'll, this dog is specifically dedicated to comfort and being a service assistance dog. So his name is Blue and he's adorable. Oh yeah. Thanks, Seth. There he is right there. He's the cutest thing.
Wow.
So get to know him. And other big happenings, I'm sure you saw mine at Beach with the Beach Nourishment that took us 10 years to put forth. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. CZM is always favorable for beach nourishment and not, revetting or doing any different solid structures. So hopefully that small nourishment does help fortify the wall there in Minot. So looking forward to see the results of that. That's not completed, but I don't know if you've driven by there. It's a quite thing to see. And that's, I think, really all I have. I can give you an update. I don't know if I sent it over to you, Celia, your questions with regards to the school and using diverse contractors and as well the bathrooms. I have a slide. Let me look through it while you guys continue with the meeting. But the short answer is yes, they have identified unisex restrooms, throughout the entire building. So there's plenty for that. And secondly, it is a requirement of MSBA that there are diverse and minority-owned subcontractors utilized throughout the project. So while I don't have a list for you, that certainly will take place. So I have some more official documentation that I will look for and flip over to all of you while you continue with this meeting, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great. Just a couple of questions. I mean, just with regards to the, I guess two questions. So with regards to the budget, have revenues been pretty static and obviously, but the expenses have just gone way up? Just like you said, cost of living every year, COLA increases and so on.
Well, we've had that, yeah, healthcare came in a little bit less than we projected, so not as bad as we thought. But what's happening is revenues are flattening out because our new growth isn't as large. You know, we really spiked, and that's where we typically get most of our numbers through new
Yeah.
growth, which that means new buildings, right? New buildings and the permitting fees and licensing fees, things like that. We're starting to see that level out a little bit. But we did, in order to offset and not go back to the taxpayer, we took a little bit more money from our solar array and our wind turbine revenue that we generate in our meals tax, and really brought that back into the financial forecast to balance the budget. So it is, Tom, we're just kind of seeing a flat line with that new growth piece that's impacting us the most. And yes, the other piece of it is as cost of living and salaries go up, and 2.5%, which we're legally allowed to raise taxes, is not enough, you know, year over year over year, when you don't have that new growth number to help offset that.
Are raises typically fixed with the official COLA number, or are you guys just 2.5?
I think it varies by contract, and Bob can back me up on that, but it's usually fairly consistent. It's not always at 2.5, but in that area.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily linked to like a cost of living index, which I think for the last couple of years have been particularly high. But
Yeah.
So you know, again, it sort of ebbs and flows. I think that with some of the last contract that we negotiated with the police department in particular, what it really was about more than anything else was what our comparable salaries looked like in relationship to, you know, to surrounding towns. And we found last contract that we did with the police department that we were actually one of the lower paid departments in the South Shore. So we obviously didn't want that to be the case. So so we had some making up to do, and we're currently in negotiations with the fire department, and they're similarly situated. So so sometimes when you have to kind of make up for lost ground, and then these surrounding towns are often given, you know, 2-3%, we have to catch up with that. So sometimes it can be a heavy hit in particular fiscal years. So particularly with police and fire, those were the two that impacted us the most, I would say.
Okay, and my second question, then we'll go over to Jamil. You mentioned, so the one position that was approved was council on aging. Can you just expand on that a little bit? I didn't catch that.
Linda Hayes requested an assistant director to help because the services and the number of classes and organizing and, you know, that, as we knew, right, that facility would explode, right?
Yep.
And she needs the assistance to continue to deliver the services and to meet the demand that they're seeing.
Okay, so I mean, that's fine. It wasn't necessarily the position that we were advocating for with Erica and so forth, but still, it's still positive, right?
No,
Just
but I think what they did,
services.
yeah, and what they did do with Erica, and Bob, you can help me with this too, but they did enlist regional support. So she has received additional support, not necessarily just solely through our payroll, but through some more of a regional system with, I think it's Hingham, Cohasset, and ourselves. I'm not sure if I have those towns correct, but
It was based on
that's
that.
correct, right?
Yeah.
So that's the route that we took in that situation to help Erica out.
Right.
Cool.
And then, you know, so there is, again, you know, obviously the need existed to have an assistant director for the Council on Aging, and, you know, how that's structured and what that person's exact job responsibilities are gonna ultimately be, still needs to be
Hey.
determined, but there's generally a sense that I think that there's some social services aspects of the Council on Aging that could use a little bit more focus and support. And so, you know, the goal is ultimately with this new position, whether or not this person as the assistant director would be overseeing, for instance, the outreach worker and the transportation coordinator who deals with a lot of the social services aspects of the services. That's still yet to be determined, but that may well be the case. And we may end up getting someone who has a social services background. So, you know, ultimately, in some respect, I think the addition of this assistant director position is, I think, going to be able to help us in terms of the services we're generally providing, particularly the outreach services, and, you know, and sort of, you know, maybe trickle down to assisting Erica in the work that she does as well. So I think there's a benefit there, you know, in terms of the services.
Cool. All right, thank you. Jamil, so thanks for joining. I know you've got, I think you've got a hard stop, so would love to hear from you because I know you're a busy man.
We all are busy, no problem. And Maura, no need to apologize. I recognize that you was either signaling to a pet, a
It was
pet
my
family member,
dog
or
jumping up on the counter. I'm so sorry.
it's either a dog or a child, one of the two. I was like, oh, I recognize that tone. That tone, I get it. I know what that tone is as a dog lover, animal lover, and parent. I was like, oh, I know what that is.
I had to quickly find the mute button. I'm sorry.
No, it just happens. We are people laughing because we get it. We get it. We absolutely
Thanks.
get it. So since our last meeting, there's a couple things happened. We had our first Black History Month event take place in Scituate at the high school. So that was a great thing to happen. I mean, it's the irony is that it's a long time coming. And so it was great that it happened. And some students had say, hey, we want to do something. I said, let's do it. And then we made it true. And so we'll do it every year. And then the plan is for it to just continue to blow up and get larger and larger and larger. And at its greatest, at its greatest point, maybe it's something that takes place in an evening or maybe 2 evenings, once in Boston and once in Scituate, so that we get things rocking like that. So we're on that journey. We're on the pathway for it. The other thing is coming up, I want to say April 9th, I think. I gotta check the calendar, but we're doing the Traces of the Trade event at the library. I think we spoke about that. And so that we're looking forward to that happening. What else? Also in the community, we did we had the meet and greet with the Scituate Police Department, where folks of color met up with our police and the department. And the whole point behind it is just meeting each other, knowing who each other are, and to absolutely decimate the myth that the police and folks of color, particularly Black folks, can't work together and can't be in the same energy, share space, and things like that. So we have to do two, because in order for us to meet all the members of the police department and knowing their shift changes and things like that, we do it twice. We did the first one already. It was fantastic. It was great. And then we got to schedule the next. We had a schedule, but then it was a busy day at the department. Some things happened, so we have to reschedule it. So we're on the way to doing that. The other thing is at some point on the webpage of our district webpage, particularly DI portal, there should be I did a presentation to the school committee last Monday, and it was a timeline of our journey with equity from 2021 to now. And it was a thumbnail view of it, because there's so much more actually that could be added on to it. But if you were to look at the last meeting that we had, I think the presentation is there also, and it may have been sent out to families as well, I think, maybe, but at some point we'll have it on the district web portal as well. So those are some of the things that have to happen.
So that was with the school committee a week ago Monday, like the 11th?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it wasn't sent out. I would have gotten it, I would assume, as a parent, but I'm sure we could just watch the YouTube, right?
Yeah, I'm at the end. I'm at the end of the dance. So
All right.
It was just fine. But those are the things that were happening since last we met that connect the community and upcoming that connect the community and ourselves. I gave Tom a special appreciation for him trying to navigate us through this meeting time. But I want to say thanks to the whole team because we've been trying to get this meeting together for a minute, and so folks stay with it. And sometimes when a group is this large, folks have every opportunity to just kind of fall apart, and that's not what happened here. So it's just worth noting that and showing appreciation to that. So thanks for that. That's all.
Submitted the agenda 1 hour after the timeline, after the deadline. 1 hour.
I don't know if we met since we the Reel had American Fiction play and we had that
No, we
panel.
haven't.
It was awesome. I have to say, I felt like so proud to go, and I brought my friend from Quincy. I'm like, come to Scituate, you know, and to see Dina, Angela, it was awesome. So kudos to you too. And yeah, Jamil, you were great on the panel, and it was just great, I think, for the town, and I hope we do more of that. So I just want to just kudos to you all.
Now you were great. I forgot you. Thank you for that. I forgot that actually was since our last meeting.
I don't know when it even was. Yeah.
Absolutely. That was a great.
I was like watching the Oscars just for that. I was like, that's the only movie I watched this year.
Yeah.
I know,
You know,
the speech that I think his name is Cord Jefferson gave at the Oscars was awesome. It was really cool. But yeah, so if you weren't, because I wasn't there, I've seen the movie, but I couldn't make it that night. But that's also either up on YouTube or Scituate Community Television or something. So if you just want to go to the end and watch the panel, you can see it.
Yeah, that thing is actually that experience is actually a great example of the school district, the community, the local businesses, all folks coming together to make that happen. Folks on this committee, folks under the library, and other committees, we just working to allow it to come to pass. So it was great. And I think Dina has something else coming from that she's connected with somebody else based from that thing. I can't remember what it is right now. She just told me, I think like yesterday or Monday. So, but it was a great look, and hopefully we can do more like that in our community. Absolutely. Thanks for mentioning that, Sarah.
Angela, I was gonna I know there's been a lot of Sister City stuff, including the parade, but if you want to touch on some of your activities, because I know you guys have been busy.
Sure. I also want to say how the American Fiction film and discussion afterwards was amazing. Jamil and Dina and the other panel, the actor from the movie, I thought his viewpoint and his address to the audience is worth everyone watching the video, just to see the different perspectives of what the film meant to those of us watching it. And, from Dina's perspective, growing up in Scituate, it had a certain meaning, but for everyone else. So I thought that was a wonderful event. Yes, a lot of participation with the Reel. They are awesome. Because they want to do so much in the community, and they hosted the Sister City Winter Film Festival, which started in January. Went to the French had 2 movies in January. The Cape Verde, we had our film in February, and it was great. We had a great turnout. A lot of people enjoyed it. It was nice to see the Cape Verdean community in Scituate, those that, English isn't their first language, see a movie that was actually our native language, with native, actors. There were actually people from the village that the filmmaker had perform in the film. That was wonderful. And we ended the film festival with My Left Foot in March. That was also, a nice movie to, bring the community together to watch together. So the film festival was very successful. We had a ball. And then the Sister City Project, for the first time, participated in the St. Patrick's Day Parade last Sunday. It was the first time I ever participated in the parade, and I amazed how watching the parade. I always watch from, close to my house near the harbor, but to actually ride in the parade and see, the community involvement and the support, it was amazing. It's a really nice experience. So we hope to make that an annual.
Excellent. I think you're starting to chop up a little, Angela. Okay, I think maybe you're back.
I'm just getting back into town.
Okay, no worries. All right. Well, we've got, depending on when we break, we've got at least a half hour, 35 minutes to discuss the main event here tonight. Yeah, I was hoping, and I think I've conveyed this, but hoping to discuss with everybody's feedback. Because I'll be honest, it's not like I don't have a laundry list of ideas to kick us off, but I know there have been some emails flying around. Kind of a reset of our goals. Not really a reset of our goals. I don't think our goals actually need changing per se. But filling that opportunities bucket back up. I know we've had a lot of different things. Get 20% of the way and then we move on to something else and so forth. But would love to see, and we obviously we can't have 10 things going on at once, but if we could kind of kick off 2 or 3, 4 different opportunities to sink our teeth into, divide and conquer and so forth. That's at least what I was thinking for this discussion. So I'm going to put Celia on the spot to start. There have been, Celia, you've had some great ideas, some emails over to Maura. I think I've tried to share as much of that as I can, but just kind of kick us off, and anybody jump in at any time if you've got different things that you've been thinking about as part of this committee, observations about the town, what have you. Obviously, Bob, jump in, Jamil, Maura. So without further ado, I'm going to stop talking for a minute.
Sure. So not a million ideas, but I just was thinking back to what we had been discussing, and something Maura said very early on when we met stuck with me, which was, for example, it's great that we have now gender neutral bathrooms in almost all town buildings, but how do we, embed that into all future buildings? Like, so how do we take what we're doing and make it systemic? So once Maura is no longer on the select board and once Jim Boudreau is no longer town administrator, how do we make sure this lives on? And I think that's more a question of what is the right way to embed all of this into town processes? And as we know, some towns have done away with their DEI committees as well. So just thinking about that, in terms of future Scituate personnel, how does it live on after Bob retires on the beach somewhere lovely in a few years? So that's just one thing that I wanted to flag because it's more a question. And then in terms of something more specific, I went back to the idea of procurement. Bob, I think at the time Ruth and I had met with DPW and it came up because Kevin is one of the 2 purchasing officers for the town. And so I know it's big on his mind, but we really didn't dig into it. But then when everything, now that everything's happening with the school, it just brought it back to the top for me. How we spend the money that we do have is important. Are we investing back in small businesses based in Scituate? Are we working with, veteran-owned businesses, women-owned, etc.? So I think how we spend town money is why I'm thinking about procurement. And it also, Kathy, who's the new communications and media person for the town, had shared a slide deck with Bob and me after a meeting that the Mass Municipal Association presented. And there's a slide, I don't know if you have it, Tom.
I do.
Yeah, I think it was just great framing. And the question at the top was, are all stakeholders served equitably? So I think if we can approach our work and goal setting from that standpoint, I think it's the right one, and I know the slide's not perfect, but it was good framing for me to think about it. And again, since purchasing and procurement were on here, I'm like, all right, like this is one we haven't really addressed yet. With employment, I feel like we've talked a ton about it, and Bob has been doing a lot. So not that we can just check that bucket, but when I reflect back on the impact we've had and what Bob has done with working with folks who are hiring, working on training, I think we've made a lot of headway there. So I think it's just good to review this overall, and I just wanted to float in particular the procurement conversation up to the top, but I think the services and programs could be a good lens too, because maybe we look more so at those departments that are providing more services than others and continue to focus on them. I know we started with health, or I never get the acronym right, DPW and police, but are there others we should prioritize based on that? Maura, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm just have my hand raised when you're done. I have
Oh, it's okay.
a thought. So Karen Canfield and Lorraine are reworking all of the select board policies right now, updating them, deleting some, you know, I think your commentary is great and spot on, and I would imagine that that is where some of this could belong, just as a policy to say, okay, whenever, you know, we're looking at our procurement policies to ensure that we're being, you know, fair and equitable and using diverse suppliers where we can. A lot of that is dictated by state procurement law. So
Yeah.
you probably will kind of see some of that trickle down, but it would be great to, you know, put that on as a goal to work with Karen and Lorraine, because they specifically are working on that right now. So I think, in my opinion, that's where that would belong. I don't know, Bob, if you think differently, but that's to me like how you set a process and a policy and a procedure.
Yeah, I know that years ago, the select board, now I'm forgetting the term, but we had identified Scituate as a municipality that would engage, and I don't know if you remember what it was. Celia, you remember when we talked to DPW that identified Scituate as a town in which we would focus our efforts in terms of procurement to make sure that we're identifying minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses, things like that. And so I think that the town has adopted that sort of approach. But, you know, when we did have the conversation with DPW, it was interesting because you know, they're aware of that they've put effort towards that, but they also described what was a really complicated process. They described a lot of sort of frustrations, I think, with the state in terms of getting, you know, lists of appropriate contractors they could use, or just like what the rules of the games are, really. And so, you know, I think that may be part of like a next step, because I know that, you know, we had the initial meeting with DPW, and that was a significant component of that conversation. But I'm just wondering to what extent maybe we kind of go back to that. I think the town's already adopted this approach, but is there something we can do to help the procurement process, to help them understand this better? Or, you know, I mean, we're certainly not experts. I know you've done a fair amount of this, Celia, but, you know, is it work directly with those departments to make sure that we support them in any way we can?
Yeah, I agree with that, Bob. And I remember that comment about the state's, God, what is it called? The SDO, Supplier Diversity Office.
Right.
Which has been elevated, I think, since the last time we talked. And I think it has more support and teeth now. So it may be a good time to circle back, but I don't think our town's frustrations are unique in that regard. But I think one thing maybe we can do as part of, and I can help with this with my homework, is providing other resources to Kevin and his team to identify those vendors. Because other than the SDO, there are community groups and others, like one that comes to mind is the Builders of Color Coalition. So anybody that's dealing with the built environment, they have a ton of folks in their network, anything with construction, pave, anything, you name it. So there are other entities other than the SDO that work with certified businesses. and have those lists and connections at the ready. So maybe it's us making them available to Kevin and his team and anyone else who is doing purchasing, since they don't have the staff, they don't have a dedicated supplier diversity person. So, and it takes that sometimes to do that digging and homework. It takes work to do it. And we don't necessarily have the resources. And what I see happening in my day job is the companies that don't have that dedicated person, you just can't do it. And so then you don't. Because they exist. I think that's the bias of like, oh, we can't find them. They don't exist. They exist. It just takes a person to do that digging. And especially since Maura mentioned there are just so many things, rules we have to follow since we're a municipality, like they have to be certified. Certification can be a huge barrier to a lot of businesses. So it's just things like that. But yeah, I think it's us providing those additional resources that go beyond the SDO, perhaps.
You know, and Celia, you had also mentioned, you know, employment and recruitment, and I'm just going back to those meetings we had with the different departments. When we did meet with DPW, there was certainly some ideas that were floated in terms of like what, because I think DPW represents an opportunity for us in terms of getting a more diverse workforce. In fact, a lot of the diversity that we've been able to achieve has been through DPW hires, but what we talked about, like even working with the local, you know, voc tech schools, things like that. But so with both of those issues, I'm just wondering if we need to sort of revisit, you know, our conversation with DPW. I think that's something we probably would, you know, looking to do regardless. I think we had to, you know, particularly even if it's like talking about what we're going to present rather to the select board. I think we, you know, it may call for us getting back together with DPW and just having further conversations and defining kind of really where we left everything.
I think we do, and then we've been, you know, we've been talking about doing that for a while, so let's just do it.
Yeah.
So, action item, right? So I don't know, Bob, if you can set that up for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so previous it was Ruth, Celia, and I'm not sure, was it Elena and I? So, you know, I'm not sure who's potentially, who else may be interested in joining us. I assume, Celia, that you would be interested. I'm
Yeah,
not sure if there's
stay on.
anyone else.
Who else wants to raise their hand? Anybody?
I don't mind helping if you need help.
That's great. Yeah, so I can do that, and I'll schedule a follow-up meeting with Celia, Christina, myself, and DPW, and we'll report back.
You can put me on it too.
Okay.
I'll make it if I can.
Sounds good.
Okay, awesome. So back to Maura. So the Karen and Lorraine, right? Reworking the policies. How do we get involved with that? Like what's their timeline on that? Do they have is there a deadline? Is it self-imposed? How does that work?
It's more self-imposed. I mean, they've already started culling together the easy ones, and we went through a couple of them at the last meeting and approved to delete some of them. So then the next step is to go, you know, to some of the more complicated ones and kind of change the language, update them, you know, so they're just doing it in phases. So I would say it's active, and I can let Karen know. You know, let me reach out to her and see. Let me see when maybe they're taking a look at, okay, is there anything new that we need to consider, right? Because right now they're, I think, culling through all the stuff that really isn't applicable yet and changing the language. So let me see where they are with their timeline with regards to, okay, is there anything new that, you know, they collectively feel we're missing that they're going to bring forth to the board for consideration? It might be a couple of months down the road, but it certainly, I think, could get, you know, work well into your planning for your goals for 2024. So let me ask her about that timing for you.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, I think it would make a lot of sense for someone or a couple of us. And again, I don't know from like what people do in their day jobs and so forth, that people have, you know, experience reviewing policies and procedures. it's not always the most glorious task, but it's I've done a fair amount of it myself, but
Mm.
if anyone wants to jump in on that, but we'll wait, I guess, for you, Maura, to kind of come back, but I'd like to think that someone, if not a few of us, would certainly raise their hands to jump in on that.
Yeah, because to Celia's point, I mean, that's where you want some of this to sit. Because town administrators change, right? Boards change, and if it's documented there,
Absolutely.
it needs to be, adhered to.
I know that, so a number of those specific policies, they actually have been forwarded to me, come across my desk. There's probably about 10 or so of them that they've asked me to review from my perspective as a HR director. I honestly haven't even, I'm not even sure what they all are, to be honest. I haven't gotten to it yet, but so I know that a few have been presented to me. I don't know if any of them were, they were sent to me because of the sort of, they're looking at the DEI lens, but so I'm somewhat involved in that process of reviewing the current policies.
All right. What else do we have that people want to jump in on? Either stuff that we've already been working on and it's kind of either hit a roadblock or just it's not getting enough love, or new stuff. Does anybody else have other ideas?
I mean, I would add in the same vein, revisiting some of the previous conversations we had. We talked previously with the police department. And again, I think it was a great conversation. We got a lot of great information from Chief Thompson. I think the chair of that committee was Ruth, so it's been a little bit. But I also, and I obviously work really closely with the chief. And so, and I think that I think his approach to the work is he's very progressive in how he does things, both him and the deputy chief Steverman. And so I think that there's been some movement and along the lines of just like his sort of development of the department that in some way sort of impact the work that we're doing. And I think that he's actually has always like kept in the back of his mind looking at things from this sort of DEI lens. And so I think it may be enlightening to actually have another conversation with the police department. And and again, I think it just, we've gone through that process. I think it makes sense to revisit it and see where we are with everything. And again, I think, I think we may find that there's some thought processes on their end that may be of interest to us and may be encouraging as well. So, similar to revisiting things with DPW, I think we should probably do the same thing with police. We've done a lot of work, but it's just sort of sitting there, and I think we should do something with that.
I agree.
Yeah,
The only interaction, I'll just real quick, the only interaction I've had with was the meeting, or maybe we had two meetings, Bob, with when we were meeting with Erica, and I'm hopefully I don't butcher the title, but Deputy Department Head Steverman.
Yeah, Deputy Chief Steverman, yeah.
Chief Steverman, and she was super engaged,
Yeah.
I mean, I love talking to her about this stuff. All right, sorry, who'd I cut off?
Oh, sorry, Tom, that was me. My computer died. I was just going to say +1 to Bob's comment about the police department. I'm personally curious now that Bob had shared, for example, we no longer are following the civil service exam, right? Like, what opportunities does that open up for the police department? I think there's a lot of change that could be on the horizon. So I think meeting now is the right time to meet.
Yeah, and they talked about some, kind of refocusing of efforts within the department, and I think that the much more sort of likely to take an approach to the policing. It's almost taking a services approach to that policing, and they work really closely with Erica, and I think that is just it's been nothing but further developed since the last time we talked. So I mean, I've just seen a lot of really positive movement in regards to the work that they do, and just under their leadership. So I think it would behoove us to just, to revisit it and learn more about what they're doing, and maybe be able to provide a little bit more input too.
Okay. I mean, I'm certainly in favor of that as well. And I wasn't a part of the initial meetings. I don't know who was. Angela, were you in on those? You're still on mute.
Mr. Seco, are you okay?
Yeah. It just
Okay.
seems like everybody's on mute. Oh, no,
All
there's
right.
Angela.
Sorry. And I can't blame it in the car because I'm not in the car anymore. Yes, I was on that in the initial meeting with Ruth, and it's been a while, but I agree with what everyone said. I think another meeting would be great with the police. They gave us a lot of their policies and explained, what all the procedures, but I think we had some follow-up questions as well. There was a document that Elena had put together with those initial notes. So we definitely have, material that we can discuss with them with a follow-up meeting.
So you'd be good to jump back in on that?
Yeah.
Okay. You said Elena, and she's not here, so we're going to sign her up too, because that's how it works. So Bob, another one for you. If you could set that up, and we'll start with Angela and Elena, and if we have to get others involved, obviously we can have, just from a quorum standpoint, we can have up to 4 of us in any of those meetings. Okay. So just so everybody knows. So if depending on schedules and so forth, if people want to jump in, just send me a note, send Bob a note, send Angela a note, whatever.
And Mr. Secor, you're still sharing your screen, yes? I'm sorry, you could want that. Just check.
Oh, I am, huh? Okay.
Yes, you are.
Appreciate that.
You got
I
it.
do that in my day job too. Yeah, I might want to. I'll stop sharing that one. I actually looked at those slide decks. Even though I just stopped sharing, what we were looking at was slide 6. I liked slide 7 too, and I think Bob, you had mentioned it was good to see those slide decks, and frankly, some of it was like reaffirming for a lot of the stuff that we are doing.
Right.
They're like, oh, this is where you need to start, and you need to have DEI in the schools, and I'm like, well, we got that. So that was good. Not that, I mean, we're not perfect. We all got a long way to go, but I was happy to see that stuff. I mean, the other thing I was going to bring up, and I brought this up a couple of times before, and especially in light of what you had mentioned at the top, more around, money's really tight and so forth. But I was looking at, actually, let me just bring this one up. So I am going to share again, if I can find it. It was in the other slide deck, which I probably don't have open. Right, just give me 1 second. As always, I just have way too many things open. Sorry, hang on. A couple more seconds here. That one more time, and then I'm going to give up. There it is. Okay. All right, so this was the other deck. Um, so I thought this was pretty good. I'm not going to go through it, but it talks about the schools, the library, Christina. We Jamil always holding his lit conversations there, which is awesome. HR, we've got Bob. I can't look at the term Parks and Rec without thinking about this show. And yeah, so lessons learned. So yeah, this is the one I was looking at. We don't have a budget. You see the third bullet there. But what I was getting to is, it says common practice, starting with an equity assessment or community equity audit, which I've talked to. I've had discussions with people in town around an equity audit, and I know they're not cheap. So I don't know if that's just something that if it's a thought that would be, if we think it would be worthwhile.
I wonder if there are grants out there, Tom.
Yeah, unless you got a grant, right? And then, yeah, so that's just something to think about. And Bob, I'm going to ask you again because I know you probably had flavors of audits done before. I mean, the schools did one, and it doesn't have to be. Well, I mean, everything it's going to have a DEI lens, but I think equity audits are done for a variety of reasons. Is that something that, like in your time at, I know DHR director wasn't even a position, X number of years ago, but do we know if something like this has been done in Scituate?
I mean, not that I'm aware of, and it hasn't been done in the few years that I've been there, but so yeah, I don't think we've participated in anything like that. I mean, honestly, the issue is always it's the money. It's they're not inexpensive, and is that if it costs $50,000, is that where the town wants to put the money?
What if we could get the money though? Would be
sure, yeah. I mean, I think the obstacle is the money more than anything else, right? I mean, but yeah.
So,
well, I would agree with that. I mean, I think the tenor of the town and the leadership right now is, I think that would really be supported, but how can we pay for it? And, a lot of you have already started to uncover quite a bit, which is great. So you've probably done a lot that, I mean, I don't know what's involved in equity assessment or audit, but I would imagine a lot of your research would be incredibly helpful. So I wonder if there is a grant out there that can cull all the information together and then pick up where you guys started.
yeah, Maura, that was going to be my point. I thought it was going to be an unpopular opinion. I feel like we are the equity audit. Like maybe I'm missing something, but I feel like that isn't our charge, is to uncover things and make recommendations based on those discoveries. And that's what an audit would do. We would then just take it and say, okay, do this, or maybe don't do A through B, but do C. So I struggle with that big time. And I personally prefer action. Like we know we need more mental health services, especially in like the police department. I would rather put that 50 grand towards hiring somebody. That's a big chunk of an annual salary. That's just my opinion. I just don't see.
So yeah, Celia, I think your point about action is a good one, because that was kind of what I was thinking. So just, transparently, I don't know a lot about equity audits, but the first thing that would come to mind is like, so if we spent all this money and did an audit and uncovered all of these things, and then then how do we act on those things, right? And so if we already have several things that we know that need to be acted on, it does potentially make more sense to just work on those. But as I said, I don't have experience with this. That's just kind of like the thing that comes to mind when I was thinking of this, is like, how would we act on all the things that we uncover? And would we have budget for a lot of the things that would potentially be recommended? And if we already know of a lot of things, then it might make sense to continue focusing there. So I think it's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be bringing in, it goes without, it'd be bringing in a consulting firm, right? That's what it would be. And whether it's purely based on like the conversations I've had, it's been more of a compensation audit than it was Lauren Vitale. So I was drawing a complete blank. Some of us probably know Lauren, but that's what she does, right? And she's been a member of Stride and stuff, so she reached out to me based on that. And that's what that would be. So it wouldn't be equity audit across the board. It would be a pure compensation audit department by department, where they'd go out and they'd get comps from the surrounding towns and so forth and work with Bob and so on.
Yeah, I mean, so if it's, yeah.
That's a different kind of audit.
No, I mean, no, so that's something we do all the time. Like I mentioned earlier that we as a result of some comps we had seen for the fire department, we had to really sort of come to the table during last negotiations. So that's something we're pretty well aware of, kind of where we stand when it comes to other towns in terms of compensation for town employees. And we also can, we've run reports in terms of like, there's something called the Equal Pay Act, state law from a few years ago that requires all employees to go through a process of like evaluating positions to make sure that they're paid equitably when it comes to gender. And so that's something that really all employees do to some extent now. So we've gone through those types of processes. I thought, when we're talking about equity audit, I thought it was more related to services provided to residents of the town,
I think it would be. I mean, I don't know what I don't know. I don't know much about an equity audit either, to be perfectly honest with you, but I'm listening to what, Celia's saying and what Carrie's saying and so forth. And I mean, I hear you.
Do you think as the next step, Tom, it's helpful, and I'd be happy to look into this, like just to gather more information for our own selves of like exactly what an equity audit could look like, just to kind of get more informed about like exactly what that could look like. Are there grants out there? Like, what is the cost? And then that might just help inform us a little bit more. I mean, I'd be happy to do some research and just kind of put some information together.
Yeah, why not? I mean, then we can at least, put it to bed completely, or say, oh, it might make sense to, if we can get a grant for 50 or 75 or 100,000, maybe it would be worth it. I don't know. I actually, because I've had side conversations with Jamil about this, because they did one at the schools. So I have to look through my notes and emails and stuff, but he told me basically what they spent and the company that did it. And I think the company that did it has an educational arm and a municipality arm. If I'm not, I could be wrong on that, but let me find that information and I'll send it over to you. But yeah, if you want to like dig into that, that'd be awesome.
One thing I
You've
want to
had your hand
raise,
up for a while. I'm sorry.
yeah. So one thing I want to raise as well, like I think a survey would be excellent if we could fund it. And, just a quick Google search, now that I'm not driving anymore, there's a bunch of towns that have done it and it is quite costly. There's other things we can also do, like focus groups, listening sessions, engagement tours that would be much cheaper. And I do think we have to think about the line of, are we like our role as advisor versus actually doing the work, right?
Yeah.
Within the scope of this committee. But there's a lot of things we could do. I've done this for organizations. And there's lots of grants. I see grants for the past couple of years, community block grants and other things that if we found something, I'd be happy to help write. But there's different ways we could approach this. Like, I don't know if we're able to get the word out and encourage, of course, community members are welcome to join these meetings, but we don't get a lot of participation. Could we increase the community member participation at these monthly meetings as a way to get a bit of a stakeholder assessment?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to have more people attend these. It hardly ever happens. I mean, when we invite people, they show up. The conversation we had regarding the the outdoor park and so forth, that was awesome. That was great. So certainly on occasion, we've had Connor Doherty in here a couple times. So, I mean, that stuff is great. I love having outside engagement. I think what we struggle with sometimes is there's still the majority of the town has no idea that we're a thing. You know?
Right. So, I mean, I don't know how we'd pull this off logistically, but what if we went neighborhood by neighborhood inviting, putting out flyers and inviting community members to join?
We could. I just question how we're going to organize that.
Yeah, that's a big undertaking without the resources, but
You can always work through Kathy too and see if there's a way in which you could communicate and share your successes and what your goals are and what you're looking for more engagement. And, we can do an e-blast or something that's properly worded, I would imagine, that can hit a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, we've always taken the position that we want to make sure that all of our services are, accessed by everyone, regardless of gender, race, religion, anything like that. But we also, I think we've always struggled with identifying who those different sort of disenfranchised groups are and how do you reach those populations and it's even if it is a small minority of the town, it's still probably ultimately a significant number. But I think we've sort of struggled with identifying like how do we reach those groups and how do we even know whether or not they're accessing services? And I think that's difficult, and there's no easy fix to it, and I'm not sure what the resolution is, but I think that's a question that we've had, I think, from the beginning, is like, how do we even know how we're doing with different groups if we're not even engaged with them necessarily?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, that's why I think the conversations with Erica just opened my eyes. And Christine, I know you were in a lot of those meetings with me, and obviously you, Bob, with regards to the aging population, right? I mean, the stuff that's going on with them, I had no idea. I mean, I was just like, wow, she just really opened my eyes to that. The other area that, they haven't really attended our meetings, but it's the Greenbush area in Stockbridge Road and stuff with Craig and those guys. But aside from that, I mean, I don't know what I don't know. Scituate can be kind of a bubble. So, but no, all great ideas. Okay, cool. Does anyone else want to jump in with anything? I'm looking at time, but this is good. I feel like we've definitely made some progress in the last 40 minutes or so. We've got some action items and so forth to kind of sink our teeth into. Does anyone have anything else that they would like to add? I'm going to have to start. I'm going to have to take a look at our future meetings. I think we may be good through April. Even April might be in question, given that I believe it is right smack dab in the middle of school vacation week. So I don't know if people are going to be impacted by that or not. And I know that as the meetings went along with, our typical, third Tuesday, we began to conflict with a lot of the select board meetings. So I'll have to take a fresh look at the meeting calendar. So just bear with me on that. Anything else from anybody at all before we close? Okay. All right. So with that, I would call for the meeting to be adjourned. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Angela. All right, calling the roll. Ms. Swope.
yes.
Ms. Gilberti.
Yes.
Ms. Sun.
Yes.
Ms. Gray.
Yes.
Ms. Risha.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right, great stuff. Great meeting, everybody. It is 7:34 and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all.
Hi,
Thanks so
guys.
much.
Good to see
Thank you.
you.
Take care.
See you.